Former President Trump's appeals court hearing on presidential immunity. Trump is expected to attend as a 3-judge appeals court panel decides if he can be charged with election interference. There will be no cameras in the courtroom, but audio of the hearing will be broadcast. The special counsel has charged Trump with illegally attempting to overturn the 2020 election, culminating in the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Trump's lawyers argue any actions he took are protected by presidential immunity. They also claim any prosecution would be a form of double jeopardy, since he was already impeached and acquitted by the Senate. Trump's legal team is arguing the 13-count indictment against him in the Fulton County, Georgia election interference RICO case should also be dismissed because Trump allegedly did not know that trying to overturn an election was illegal. The lawyers make that argument in a new court filing. Quote, our country.
Wait a second. Gene Robinson, hold on a second. No, hold on.
Yeah.
This is one of those times where we don't just let you-know-what fly against the wall. When Donald Trump says, I did not know that calling the Secretary of State of Georgia and telling him to throw out 11,000 however many votes are to, well, why don't we play this where this is where Donald Trump is demanding that the Secretary of State of Georgia steal the election for him. And listen to this. And this guy is claiming, this guy who wants you to lose your retirement savings and your 401k and wants the economy to crash so he can get elected president of the United States because he's that desperate to be elected president of the United States. That's the same guy who was so desperate to remain as president of the United States. That's the guy you're about to hear here, where he calls the Secretary of State of Georgia and said, steal this election for me.
Right.
Take a listen.
I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. There's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
There's nothing wrong, Donald Trump says, with lying through your teeth. Finding 11,780 votes. Listen, I don't like to admit this, Gene, but I'm a simple country lawyer, all right? Just a simple country lawyer.
Well,
I fell off a turnip truck, and I landed in front of Congress, and I served in Congress for a few years. And let me tell you, even as a simple country lawyer, me and the thousands and thousands of people who are elected every 2 years to serve in Congress, it seems like thousands, everybody there would know that's stealing an election, and that is illegal.
Yeah, and I grew up in a town where there were turnip trucks where I grew up too, and still anybody, the driver of the turnip trucks, the people who loaded the turnips and unloaded them, they all knew that stealing an election was illegal. Everybody knows that. And what a ridiculous claim, what a ridiculous filing, again, in a series, in a blizzard of ridiculous, frivolous legal filings that the former president has made, within a hailstorm of ridiculous, offensive, and just crazy comments that he's making. And you are right that we cannot become inured to any of this, because it is not normal, and it is completely out of bounds in terms of the way our democracy or any democracy ought to work.
Yeah, let's bring in right now former U.S. Attorney and MSNBC contributor Chuck Rosenberg, a man who, trust me, did not just fall off a turnip truck yesterday and wind up inside the studios of 30 Rock like me. But Chuck, we're laughing about this defense, and we're laughing about it, I think, for valid reasons, but why don't you take us through it legally? Any chance that Donald Trump's going to prevail on that point or any of these points that Mika read?
Yeah, Joe, you're laughing about it because it's laughable. I mean, defense attorneys can write what they want. They can file what they want. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, assuming this case goes to trial in Georgia, there's going to be 12 men and women in the jury box who are going to decide what they think of this defense. Now, it's clear ignorance of the law is not a defense, but more than that, he tried to steal an election. He did it in a number of ways, by submitting slates of fake electors, by putting pressure on local officials, by trying to get Vice President Pence on that awful day in January to halt the vote and to substitute his electors for the genuine electors. A jury will see that. A jury will hear that. They'll see the evidence. They'll hear from the witnesses. And so it's laughable. We can laugh about it. At the end of the day, in a serious place, in a court of law, a jury will decide, and they're not going to buy it. They didn't, as you and Eugene have talked about, just fall off a turnip truck.
Chuck, this seems pretty straightforward, that today Donald Trump is going to go in and he's probably not going to get an outcome that is to his liking or his defense attorneys. Do you think that's probably what's going to happen, or what do you think is the best case scenario for Donald Trump today?
I think that's right, Elise. So that's a different case. This is an oral argument in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Mr. Trump filed a motion to dismiss the indictment against him because he claimed two things. One, that he is immune from prosecution as a former president. The answer to that legally is no. Nonsense, you're not. And then the second claim that he brought is that double jeopardy precludes him being charged with these crimes. Again, the answer is no, wrong. Double jeopardy does not. That's not double jeopardy, and that's not going to work to his favor. So, maybe I'm biased, Elise. Maybe I come at this from a different vantage point because I was a former federal prosecutor. But I think these arguments he's advanced in the D.C. Circuit to dismiss the underlying indictment are frivolous. I think he loses. I think he loses unanimously, and I think he loses quickly.
So Chuck, if he loses the double jeopardy argument, he loses the sorry, I didn't know it was a crime argument. Is the biggest potential impact that it delays that March start date of the D.C. trial? Right. So that's a great question, Katty. The trial we're talking about, the federal case in Washington, D.C., is slated for trial on March 4th. And I think that trial date is endangered. I'm not sure it's doomed. And let me explain that. If the Court of Appeals can quickly decide this case, finding that he is indeed not immune from prosecution, finding indeed that double jeopardy does not preclude this prosecution, they issue their ruling, they issue the mandate quickly, and the Supreme Court refuses to hear the case. They don't have to, of course. There's a chance that this can get back on track rather quickly in the district court, in the trial court in the District of Columbia. Will it be March 4th? Can it be that quickly? I don't know. I hope so. But if things break the way I think they're going to break, Katty, I believe this case can be tried before the election. In fact, well before the election.